See it played. Death Ride, Hafid Ridge, actions. So actions for me are smaller than scenarios. Actions for me may be parts of a scenario, or it may be a made-up situation where I just take some units, organize them in formations, grab a map, put the formations on the map, and just go at it using the rules, I guess, as applicable. So these are actions. And so this action, what I'm doing is I'm fighting the eastern half of the historical scenario. So here's the historical scenario. Showdown at Hafid Ridge, 1516 June 1941. And I'm orienting the picture of the map with the map on the table, and I am playing this eastern half. Yeah, like that. So primarily it's the German, it's German BP or battle positions 2 and 3 here correspond to the German forces here with mines and wire, and the British are attacking from south to north. So that's what I mean by action. In this case, it's specifically half of the historical scenario. Okay. So I have some notes to go over from my last play. Note 1 is here because this is the lead tank platoon that finally got up to the high ground here on the far left of the German defenses. And it moved from here. And when I was developing the main British attack last time, and I was firing, I massed all my fire here at the German left. I made a point to have this tank platoon not fire, thinking that after all the massed fire, I would suppress the Germans enough to allow the one lead platoon that didn't fire to move up here, and which it did. But I need to remember that I need to break out of the thinking that these units move or fire. They don't. So that platoon could have just as easily participated at full combat strength in that attack and afterwards moved half of its movement allowance, which would have easily allowed it to get to this high ground anyways. And for that matter, after all that firing, the British can cover a lot more ground than they're doing. So that is definitely my own thinking. I mean, I absolutely applaud the rules and the game design for allowing so much flexibility and frankly so many opportunities for action. These are 2-hour turns. It's vastly different than some other platoon scale games. And there's so much more that I could be doing that I'm just not thinking of doing. And as well, every time I finish a big action like the British attack here, which could have been a lot more than it was, afterwards I'm thinking that I could have and should have done things differently, because you have so much flexibility in how you sequence your actions. So that's note number 1. Note number 2 is back here. This is by the British Brigade headquarters. And this is just to remind me and to say that you want to you want to keep an eye on, which is good, you want to keep an eye on your command control architecture, hierarchy. You want to keep an eye on this because the battalion headquarters that pushed ahead so that it could command control that the British attack from the east against the left of the German defenses is now pretty much near the extreme range for C2 from that battalion headquarters back to the brigade headquarters. And then the brigade headquarters back to, off the screen there, the artillery. So this is just a reminder that it now looks pretty easy. I think it's going to be pretty easy to look up one turn and realize that you have outrun your command control ranges. So I guess I'll say again, in this See It Played series of videos, my See It Played videos are really extended examples of play. So while it would be nice to say that this was a good, tactical demonstration, I know it's definitely not. However, and the good thing about the game is that I think there is a lot of depth as far as understanding and really gaining play experience in how to play well. I think that this is the kind of game where you have your basic rules that are all pretty straightforward. Yeah, I do think they're all pretty straightforward. As long as you're ready to use a calculator, I think that the rules are pretty straightforward, and then it's how you put all those rules together that creates a lot of depth, because it seems like there's always more to learn as far as how to do things better. So this is not a game where you learn the rules and then you know what to do. This is you can learn the rules game and start playing and still not have any idea what you're doing. So anyways, I may not have expressed that well, but the good thing is this is the type of game that just keeps bringing me back because I want to learn more. And by the way, I haven't even mentioned, because I'm not ready to, but I'm using hang on a moment, essentially the 16-page rules version, and this does go up to a 100-page rule book. Now, 100-page rule book, I think that one has a solid 60 pages of rules in it, but still, 60 pages of rules for a game that is presented in such a straightforward and succinct manner. There's a lot. My point is there's a lot more growing for me as a player in this system that I'm just hugely looking forward to. All right, enough of that. Let's get back into the See It Played video here. Top of the turn, as we've talked about before, the air allocation phase, and we're going to see what, no, Germans roll a 7, they're not going to get air. Oh, the British roll a 1. So the British are going to get, the British side does get an air mission. As I said before, I'm fighting half of the battle, so what I'm doing is I'm just, all right, they missed it. All right, well, what I'm doing is a 5 or less means that I get the air mission in this action. I rolled a 6, so I'm saying that the air mission would have gone to the other side of the battle that I'm not playing. So I roll for air allocation for the side, and if the side gets the air mission, then I roll a 50% chance. Yeah, 50% chance that the air mission is available in the action I'm playing, which is the eastern half of the battle. Okay, so again, no air mission. We are skipping the combat service support phase entirely. So we're going right to the German turn. We do check command and control quickly. Basically, it's still a defensive position here. No C2 issues. Now we go to the German operations phase. By the way, this reminds me of something as well. And this is another aspect of the great opportunity for learning more and more about the play, especially for the Germans here. I need to remember that there are actual withdraw movement rules, and those are not something to forget, I think. But yeah, so I got to remember that this game has actual withdraw movement. All right. So, and again, the nice thing about the game with its flexibility is when I get to the operations phase, right? So this is the German operations phase. And in this operations phase, I'm going to be doing all of the major actions: moving, firing, artillery fire if it's available, air strikes if that's available, all this stuff. You can do it in any order, so it's nice as a player. No, it's more than nice. I think you really have to think about what you're doing, which is interesting that such simple, straightforward rules make it so that you really have to think about what you're doing holistically. And frankly, that makes sense because I'm thinking of the traditional, and of course, assuming I can even say there's a traditional sequence of play, but the traditional sequence of play of like, now you declare your artillery barrages, then you execute your artillery barrages, then you do your mechanized movement, and then you do your non-mechanized. I mean, when the turn is broken up into all your little steps, a lot of those decisions are frankly made for you. So you can go through and kind of play each little step by itself. Here, you kind of should have an idea, again, holistically, of what you're going to do. Now, this is German defense, static defense. So it's kind of the question of when to shift forces, what to do with reserves, where to mass fires. But again, you can do those things. You can do whatever's entailed with those things in any order you want. Okay. So now I'm just remembering. So unfortunately, or I'm recalling where I left off. So the far left German position there is suppressed. As long as the enemy is not adjacent. Well, no, actually they'll recover this because it's a green suppression. They'll recover this at the end of this operations phase, or not at the end, but later in the German player turn, but before the British Army turn. So because there's no enemy adjacent, that German unit will recover 2 suppression levels, meaning it's going to come off. Okay. Looking out, even though we had caused a lot of suppression on the British forces, we have gotten down to just 1 lightly suppressed tank platoon here. So again, maybe these 2 platoons, or maybe these 3 platoons, well, let's see. Their defense would be 8. Yeah, I think that these 3 platoons are going to mass on that British tank platoon. We're going to hope for good luck in a good die roll and maybe knock that out. At least we want suppression 3, which means that it will take 2 recovery phases to recover entirely. So at least we want a suppression level 3 there. Since it's already at 1, we really just need to at least add 2 suppression levels to that platoon there, although it would be nice to knock it out completely. And another thing to remember is suppressed units can still fire, and for that matter, they can still move. It's another thing to remember. So that unit, even though it's suppressed, is still going to fire back at the lead British platoon there. So again, in no way are you required to declare anything, but I'm finding as I play and I'm really enjoying playing this game system, it is a good idea to figure out what you're going to do, because then you should give some thought to the order you're going to do it, and I'm learning can make a huge difference. This is not a good example here, but especially on the British side, in this action alone, it's become clear that the order you do things can be very significant. So I'm going to do a bunch of firing and we'll come back and see what the results are. Okay. Had 2 fire attacks. Germans had 2 fire attacks. The suppressed tank platoon over here fired at the British tank platoon up here. It was a -1 die roll modifier because they're firing up to higher elevation. That was the only DRM. No, actually, that's not true. I'm sorry, there's -2 for being suppressed to level 2. So actually it was -3. So -2 for fire being suppressed to level 2, and minus another 1 for firing up to a higher elevation. Okay. They didn't have much of a chance, but just as a reminder, so this is the very important. The secondary weapon factor of 5 at short range is 1/2. So it's 2.5 minus 20% for being suppressed to level 2. So there's that. And then I'm adding that to the primary weapon value of 4, also at short range, is times 1.5. So it's 6 minus 20% for being suppressed to level 2. Add those together, divide it by 7 for the defense of the British tanks. That results in the 0.97, which means that we resolve fire on the 0.75 column. Okay, just a little review there. Now, no luck there, but we actually had quite a bit of luck on the other attack. So this tank platoon is firing only primary weapons at long range here. This platoon is also only firing primary weapon at long range because it's 5 hexes to the target. So only primary weapon long range, primary weapon long range. This unit, however, is firing secondary weapon at short range, primary weapon at short range. So put those 4 factors together. You get one factor for this platoon, another factor for this platoon. Actually, they're the same. And then you get 2 factors from this platoon because you're going to get a primary and a secondary factor. Put all those together, divide by 7 plus 1, or 8, to get your ratio. So they just barely made it to the 2 column. They had very good roll with 9, plus 1 for firing to lower elevation for 10, resulted in plus 3 suppression. And that's a red 3, so we add the red 3 to the green 1. And basically these are handled separately in the unit suppression recovery phase. So not bad. Got the unit up to suppression level 4. One more level and that unit gets eliminated. So that's all the German firing. We're going to leave the reserve as is for now. And that's let's finish the German player turn. Actually, that's the end of the German operations phase. There is no close assault because nobody's adjacent. Now we go to unit suppression recovery. So again, the phasing player reduces green suppression. So German player's phasing. There are no enemy adjacent to this unit here, so it recovers 2 suppression levels. So it's removed and back to unsuppressed. Now both players flip red suppression to green. So this one is flipped to the green 3, and now I believe they can be put together. They can be merged. So I'm going to take the 1 and the 3 and just leave it with a green 4 because, well, obviously left with green suppression level 4. So just like that, that is unit suppression recovery. The German player turn. Unit suppression recovery phase, yeah. Then we look at interdiction placement, return, and cast mission return phase. And we don't have any. And that's the end of the German player turn.